The construction industry abounds with risk. Risk of poor estimates, risk of disruptions in weather, labor, supply chain, and the ever-present risk of something going sideways during construction or final occupancy. The burgeoning sector of the Internet of Things, IoT sensors and devices, supported by the cloud and analytics, aims to address at least some of the risks inherent in constructing our built environment. To that end, we welcome Hamid Alemohammad to EBPowerCon 2022 with the session Managing Construction Risk with IoT. A subject matter expert in the Internet of Things, Hamid will provide an overview of IoT and construction sites, buildings, and facilities, and zero in on risk mitigation solutions that are available in the market right now for constructors and owners. Good day, Hamid, and thanks for joining me here at EBPowerCon. You have a PhD in mechanical and mechatronics and over 16 years of experience in industrial sensing systems and instrumentation, including Internet of Things technology. And that's really where I want to take our conversation today. But before we get into IoT, maybe help set the stage for us and talk about construction risks. So what are construction professionals facing, both pre and post occupancy?
Good day, Anthony. Great pleasure to meet you, and thanks for inviting me and introduce me to the audience. Yes, construction. If you look at during the construction, professionals and contractors are usually focused on ensuring projects are safe, on budget, and on time. These are the terms that we always hear from contractors. Insurance providers, at the same time, they share a common interest with the objectives of contractors as they seek to improve risk management in the construction projects. The construction risk market, at the same time, is under pressure. Developers and builders are seeing higher prices and tightened markets due to the unprecedented number of insurance closing doors to construction projects and to basically providing construction coverage and also moving most of their capacity toward shorter risk opportunities. At the same time, to meet the requirements of today's construction sites, the integration of technology that can protect the safety, efficiency, and productivity of a construction site benefits everyone involved in the project, especially the contractors and the insurance providers. At the same time, the developers who are the owners of basically the projects. I mean, if you want to be specific, when it comes to construction, Internet of Things or IoT technology is a very powerful offering, and it's very incredible in terms of providing insights into a wide range of job site conditions.
Maybe you can just spend a couple minutes on the Internet of Things, IoT. What is IoT? What are some of the things that we are connecting? What are we connecting them to? What kind of insights are we gleaning from all this? Maybe you could spend a few minutes on that.
Sure, that's actually a very great question. IoT, or it stands for basically Internet of Things, is a nexus of connected devices, software, and analytic tools, which is used for collecting, managing, analyzing, and creating insights and generating predictions, for example, trend predictions, and at the end, helping making decisions. An IoT system is basically enabled by, or it enables data-driven decision-making and prediction. And when it comes to construction applications or industrial applications, IoT is used for applications such as process optimization, predictive maintenance in the equipment, for example, improving efficiency and productivity, and enhancing sustainability. If you look at an IoT stack, it includes a network of connected devices. And these devices, it may include sensors. These are devices such as temperature sensors, humidity sensors, leak detection sensors. It could be more sophisticated. It could be cameras that they collect videos and images. Any other vision system could be considered as a device in an IoT system, or basically any device that can collect data. That's what we call it. The device is connected to an IoT system. The devices could be stationary, they could be mounted on a tower, on a crane, or they could be on a robot, they could be mobile. As they move, they generate these data. And we sometimes refer to these data as telemetry data. The IoT doesn't end at the device level, basically. The data gets uploaded to a cloud where there is another layer to that. And that's basically the true value proposition of the IoT. And that's data analytics, prediction, and insights. And data analytics these days, it includes sophisticated machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms, which they can look at the historical data, they can look at the trends, and they can predict the next steps or other types of trends. And if you look at IoT as a system, it has four key pillars. Let's call it like a holy grail of IoT. They are actually indispensable parts of an IoT system or ecosystem. Sensors, connectivity, cloud, and analytics. All these four elements are key pillars of an IoT system. I personally believe that the impact of IoT is comparable to that of personal computers back in 1980s or late 1970s, the internet, smartphones, and other technologies that have made fundamental shifts in the economy and the way we interact and the changes that we have seen in the past 40 to 50 years. And what we see today is basically the tip of the iceberg.
Interesting. So this is the next big thing after the personal computers and the smartphones. To help bring this down more to a grassroots understanding, maybe we take a look at BrickEye, formerly AOMS. What made you decide to get into the construction sector at that time when you founded AOMS, and maybe explain the solution you brought to market, how it worked, sort of keeping in mind the holy grail that you were talking about, and how it checkmarked that holy grail, just so we have a better understanding of that, those four tenets that you mentioned that are part of an IoT solution.
Sure. BrickEye, which is the current name of the company, which was formerly known as AOMS Technologies. The company was founded after a decade of R&D in the University of Waterloo in Canada. The founders, including myself, we actually were doing our grad school and grad studies at Waterloo. And the company's genesis was based on development of sensors and data acquisition systems for harsh environment. And construction sites was actually one of those types of rugged or / harsh environment applications. And in that sense, they're very special. You cannot just put a device in a construction site and hope that it works. And that was basically a trigger point, is that we saw a lot of fit in our product and the construction market. And at the same time, we saw that the industry is actually looking for solution to address some challenges related to productivity and efficiency, at the same time risks. And construction is a very complicated environment, as you know. There are multiple parties involved, there are multiple stages, and I always call it a dynamic and moving environment. So things are not stationary or static in the construction. And at the same time, we should also consider the fact that project stakeholders in construction, which could be project managers, site crew, developers, they depend on the data that is collected by these systems and devices. And it's very important that these devices meet the reliability and redundancy and long-term durability for operations and deployment in construction sites.
Just getting back to when you first stepped out onto the stage in the construction sector, what did AOMS's solution do?
Our company, AOMS, our first offering to the construction industry was our concrete monitoring platform, which is also called Lumicon Concrete Sensors product line. And it's used for monitoring the performance of concrete at the time that the concrete is poured, all the way to the final curing stage. And with that product, we were able to help the contractors and the owners of the projects to fast track the project schedule. We have with the data that is real time, generated in real time, sent to the cloud and analyzed. In a lot of projects, we prove that they can advance their schedule by 20% and save a lot of time from delays and other types of delays in the projects. At the same time, the product also helps the contractors to meet with their contractual requirements. There are a lot of performance requirements, especially in infrastructure projects that deal with bridges, roads, foundations, that they require monitoring of the concrete in real time at the time that the concrete is poured. So that was basically the first product that we brought to the industry, and I mean, since then we have expanded.
Well, let's get into that now. And the reason I asked about the initial solution, the initial product offering, is so that I and anyone watching this understands that rather than IoT being this nebulous thing of sensors and clouds and all this other stuff, it's identifying a need, a problem, that of monitoring concrete, making sure it's correct and right and meets spec.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it also helps advance the project schedule, so that people get a better understanding of, oh, okay, I understand this now. It's not some weird nebulous thing. It's here's how this particular solution is used and the benefits we derive. So thanks for explaining that. But now, getting into BrickEye, it was actually BrickEye that initially caught my eye, because its founder, Diego Beltran, commented that water is the new fire, and electricians never work in a perfect water safe environment. And considering my audience is electrical professionals, it's like, oh, what's going on here? What are these guys talking about? Tell me about then the construction risk mitigation solutions that BrickEye brought into the AOMS fold, but now you've since rebranded as BrickEye. So tell me about those mitigation solutions, and the importance for those working with electrical.
We saw a big trend in different sectors that customers were coming to us and asking for a solution for remote inspection of facilities. And interestingly, during COVID, when the facilities were short-staffed, there was more interest into remote inspection, because I mean, sending people to remote locations for doing basic inspections is not really feasible, or if it's feasible, it's expensive, and it causes a lot of safety issues. So before acquiring BrickEye, we actually collaborated with BrickEye team in a few construction projects. And immediately we found the synergy between the two companies. And since then, we joined forces to offer a technology solution specifically for risk mitigation in construction projects. And now, I mean, as a result of the acquisition, we can now provide solutions that can monitor and analyze different types of risks. And you brought up a very good point and a good example of a risk, which is water. And water is damage, and water damage is basically caused by either water infiltration or water leakage, and it's one of the biggest insurance claims in construction sites. And it could happen in electrical rooms, in electrical risers, in elevator pits during the construction. It could happen in water mains, in pressure reduction valve closets, and also in temporary water lines. So after the foundations of a building is finished, basically you need to have water for the rest of the construction. The water goes through temporary water lines, or sometimes the permanent water lines. But during the course of construction, there's always a risk of water. And water infiltration not only causes damages to maybe the structures or other types of other parts of the building, it causes a safety issue. And that's what you brought up, is electricians and the staff were working on finalizing and assembling the electrical equipment in a construction site. They are always exposed to that. So that's one risk that we monitor in the construction sites. But I mean, if you look at the construction site, there are other types of risks that also very important, and one of them is environmental hazards and pollution. That include noise, dust, vibration, extreme temperature and humidity, frost, and precipitation. As an example, in a project that a commercial tower project in a metropolitan area, contractors and developers are required to ensure that the amount of noise that they generate, the noise emissions from the perimeter of the project site is below a certain level. And each city, each state and jurisdiction has their own limits for that. So that's just one example of a risk. Another type of risk that we have is related to building interior risks, and that's when the the finishing part of the project after foundations is conducted. For example, air quality and extreme conditions of temperature and humidity can affect, for example, the paints, the drywalls, like other types of finishes that we do in the buildings. And we have also health and safety aspect of that, which is generally you don't want really the contractors and the staff and the crew be exposed to dangerous gases like carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide, and methane, which are generated from the equipment or from other machinery in the construction sites. So these are all other types of risks that we actually monitor, and we help the contractors to have visibility into these types of risks. I don't know if you can consider the risk or not, but that's about sustainability and green practices for construction. So in cold climates, I mean, we're located in Toronto in Canada, but many cities and many states are actually located in a cold environment during the winter time. And when you pour concrete during the winter time, you need to keep the concrete warm. And gas heaters or diesel heaters are used for this purpose. What we found is that a lot of these equipment is not really monitored in real time, and they're just in a passive mode. They're turned on. And there are two types of problems here. One is that because there's no feedback loop there, you really don't know if you need the heater on. I mean, the temperature goes up and down, like at night, as for example, you're below freezing point. During the day, you might be higher, but there's no control on that as you're burning the fuel. So that's the green aspect of it, and the GHG emission as a result of the equipment running constantly. The other side of it is the toxic gases that are generated by the equipment, which could be carbon monoxide or hydrogen sulfide as a result of burning fuel. So that's also another type of monitoring that we do. And on a long-term basis is the structural health monitoring. It's long-term monitoring of the structures to reduce the maintenance cost and ensuring that the structures are always at a healthy condition. They can be monitored with sensors and devices, and you always have real-time data from vibrations, from strains, from cracks, or any types of failures that could potentially happen to the structure over time. But that's another type of monitoring that IoT enables.
You know, as people are listening to this, they're listening to the possible solutions that are available out there. They're already thinking about, well, how can I apply this to my next project because I'm doing this or I'm doing that. It could, up my health and safety game. Reducing emissions is becoming increasingly important as time goes on. Reducing carbon, net zero carbon, net zero emissions. So all these things are increasingly important. So hopefully everyone is listening to this and going, yes, this is something I should explore for my next project or projects. But now at the start of the conversation, we had mentioned insurance and, possibly being able to maybe get better rates because of all these technologies that one is employing on their project. So what is your sense with the insurance industry being sort of a legacy industry, maybe not that quick to move and advance with changing technologies? Are they looking positively on contractors, owners, developers who employ IoT solutions to prevent or mitigate some of these risks?
General contractors and developers can leverage the technology to access more competitive coverage and options that are open to them. And at the same time, they can reduce the cost of damages and failures in the form of insurance deductibles. If you have a construction site that is insured, there's always a deductible. For example, it could be $50,000 deductible for a water damage. Even though the insurance will pay you for the damages, but you're still responsible financially for the first $50,000. And that's also a big cost. So what we have seen in the industry is that contractors and developers are basically very interested in adopting technology in order to mitigate these risks and reduce the cost of that. At the same time, we have seen that in a number of cases, the insurance companies, they require the developers and contractors to provide some kind of a risk mitigation plan that would include monitoring, especially for water. And sometimes they don't actually provide any insurance if the contractor or developer do not have any sort of monitoring practice or any plan from a risk mitigation standpoint. And the benefit, if you look at the benefit on the insurance side and the insurance provider side, they can actually benefit from reduced number of claims because there's more stringent monitoring, and there is to mitigate the risk and also to comply with basically best practices related to risk mitigation. We see that trend that the number of insurance companies are actually building technology ecosystems. They're recommending technology to their customers, which are general contractors and developers, and they're basically an advocate for that. I mean, at the same time, people may think, oh, this is counterintuitive because insurance companies, they earn money by selling more insurance, but at the same time, you have to look at the cost of that. So when you sell more insurance, you're basically exposing yourself to more costs from a damage standpoint. So at the end of the day, the bottom line matters. And if you give discount to the contractors who are using technology, you're basically reducing your cost as an insurance company to pay for the damages and failures. So we see that trend as happening, and insurance tech is generally, or insurtech is a very hot market. It's adoption of technology in the insurance industry is happening in different sectors and different areas, and we see that's happening also in the construction sector.
Excellent. So they're maybe not yet quite fully 110% on board, but they're moving in that direction, and they see the benefits, and there's clearly benefits for those who are taking out the insurance, so that hopefully it helps on their final bill. Now, when it comes to IoT, a lot of times, in just a quick Google search, you quite frequently see IoT, and the next word is cybersecurity. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask about cybersecurity and the secureness of these devices. Thinking back to an article that I published about 2 years ago now, June 2020, there was a gentleman, Hervé Tardy, at the time vice president and general manager of Eaton's distributed power infrastructure business. And he wrote back then, by targeting an overlooked vulnerability in a major retailer's HVAC unit, attackers, cyber attackers, were able to access point of sale devices and steal 70 million, that's 70 million client accounts. With anything connected, anything technological, that threat is always there. I think we know this. I don't think this is unique to an IoT on a construction site, my own laptop, smartphone. I mean, the risk is always there. But looking at it from the IoT and construction risk mitigation perspective, how is industry responding to this concern? How do the benefits outweigh these risks?
A very good point. You brought up a very important point with the topic of cybersecurity. And let me define what is cybersecurity. At a very high level, cybersecurity is a set of technologies, processes, practices for protecting networks, devices, programs, and data from cyber attacks, damages, and unauthorized access and disclosure of data. And these days, cybersecurity is one of the hottest topics in IT and also in the IoT. And as the number of devices that are connected to the internet and clouds the number of those are basically increasing and more people are working remotely, it's basically crucial for any technology solution provider to adopt and maintain a very well-defined cyber policy and processes and procedures across their entire information system with the goal of reducing and removing vulnerability to the end users. And this is not just for the devices that are connected to internet or to the cloud, it's across the entire information system. It goes all the way down to the way the personal data is stored, the way the policies around employees working from home or employees of the technology solution providers working from home, and how you manage the computers and laptops that are owned by the company and are connected to a Wi-Fi network that is not owned by the company. So it's basically a program and is a set of processes and procedures that need to be adopted by technology providers. And at the same time, I see that we as a technology provider, we are responsible to adopt and maintain these policies and plans and programs to be in compliance with the cybersecurity regulations, which could change from one country to another country. And also some cybersecurity plans and programs are specific to a certain industry. For example, utilities, they have a special type of cybersecurity plan. Manufacturers, they may have another type of requirements, but overall there are many standards available that covers different types of coverages and standards associated with cybersecurity. And at the same time, I should say that we are a risk mitigation business. We cannot offer a solution that adds more risk that outweighs the benefits. So that's very important. And
that's an excellent point, Hamid.
Yeah, you can't, as you mentioned, the risks of cybersecurity can't outweigh the benefits of the IoT system, which is basically deployed for risk mitigation. It's above and beyond just the devices. It's network devices, data, even mobile devices, database infrastructure, and also the software applications.
Very good, and I imagine we'll sort of close off with my next question, but I imagine that when you do find a trusted vendor, a trusted solutions provider to work with, they'll also help inform and guide when it comes to these sort of standards and certifications. So that does sort of segue nicely into my last question. Because we've talked about what is the IoT, the Internet of Things, what sort of solutions have been brought to market for mitigating risk in the construction sector specifically. We've kind of talked about, we've got sensors, we've got, the cloud, data centers, and analytics, where all this stuff is being crunched so that actionable decisions and information can come out. So as an audience member, I'm listening to all this and I'm getting excited because I'm already thinking about, ooh, I could use this solution here. I could use this solution there. How does one shop for an IoT solution? Where do you go? Because I'm assuming you don't want to just call the first number you get on a Google search or something. How do you find and separate the good players with bona fide solutions from bad actors out in the market?
Sure, that's a great question. And with the increasing number of IoT solutions in the market, I can imagine that it's difficult for contractors to pick a solution that fits their needs and their project requirements. My suggestion is that to, first of all, pick a solution that has a successful track record of deployment in a similar applications. And in this case, is basically construction. One parameter that I recommend to consider is that generic IoT solutions are not necessarily the right choice for a construction project. They might be a good choice for other types of applications, but as I mentioned before, construction sites are very special. They're very special environments, and devices and products need to be designed for long-term operation in a reliable manner in those type of environments. Contractors should always choose a solution that has a proven track record of successful deployment in a construction projects. And another point to consider is that although cost of technology is important, but I mean, it might be cliche, but cheapest solutions might not necessarily be a good fit. Contractors and developers should look at the total cost of ownership and at the same time the reliability of the product. A product may look inexpensive upfront, and down the road, after you deploy it, it may fail over the course of the project, which add more labor and capital costs for the contractor to replace and repair. So that's also one parameter to consider. Another important parameter for adopting an IoT solution is the integration. It's important to pick a solution with built-in capability to integrate with BIM, building information modeling platforms, with project management software, with ERP systems, or other types of tools. And we see solutions in the market that are designed in a very proprietary way, and they lack integration with other platforms. Again, they may look enticing at the beginning, but after you deploy it, you realize that you need, for every single solution, you need to have a different dashboard, and that's basically a case where the cost outweighs the benefit in the project. So you see a PM having like 5 apps on their phone to check different things in a construction project. Whereas if you have a platform, you adopt a technology that can already integrate with their own, like with the contractors, for example, ERP system or other project management tools, you have only one platform to access all the data. The technical term for these type of integrations is API, and it stands for Application Programming Interface. And it's basically a set of definitions and protocols for integrating different software applications. So it's very important to pick a solution that has an API or is capable of providing an API. Contractors should pick solutions that are scalable and flexible, and only you work with solution providers that have full control on their products. Again, the way the IoT market is expanding is that it's becoming to some extent commoditized. There are templated softwares that are available that you can use and connect your sensors and devices. They may not be necessarily a good choice for contractors because they lack flexibility and scalability. I mean, for a hobby project or adding a smart sensors to your home, they might be a good fit. But when you're expanding across an organization at an enterprise level, I recommend avoid using those type of platforms. And you only work with technology providers and technology solution providers that have a full control on their product from all the way from the hardware to the software level.
And then I imagine you get a much higher level of accountability from that solutions provider. So these are some excellent tips that you have shared when it comes to shopping around for finding a solutions provider who is going to help provide that solution that you've identified for your current project or perhaps future projects. Hamid, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about and not just talk about but to provide examples, real, pardon the pun, real concrete examples of how IoT is used in the construction sector, how it's being used now, how ideally people using their imaginations can see themselves using it in the future, and the benefits that they can derive from that, because the technology is there, the solutions providers are there, and now hopefully just more and more of you will get connected and start bringing more of these solutions for the project under construction and for the life of the structure as well too, because you had mentioned structural monitoring. So this is something that's ongoing that can pay dividends down the road. Again, I've talked long enough. Hamid, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me at EBPowerCon.
Thank you very much, Anthony. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to speaking with you more about different types of IoT technologies.